context of religion.
Now the context of religion,
Yeah, yesterday there was a context of religion. It was basically. So, but yeah, same. Something is, in writing there was problem, but the same thing. It is about religion, not only it is not in philosophy. It is about religion.
Yeah, maybe the topic is with yesterday.
It is religion. Religion.
Maybe it is the same slide for
Continuity. In continuity, yesterday it was philosophy, today it will be religion. Philosophy of religion and as philosophy as such, both, inshallah.
yeah. Okay. So this topic is about the religion in the context of religion, actually, but this will continue from yesterday's lecture, the context of philosophy. But if we talking about the religion and reason, this is maybe one of the most important or interesting topics in the Islamic philosophy, because we know that Islamic philosophy is the philosophy that basically developing the Islamic tradition, like the revelation, the strong influence about the revelation in epistemology. But we, as philosopher, or we in the field of philosophy, we put our trust like epistemology and reason. So how do we can combine, or maybe how can we just put the intuition and the revelation and the reason in harmonic place in epistemology? This is one of the important, interesting topic in this lecture. Well, Professor Hamidullah Hamdazi came from the Shahid Hamad Institute of Islamic Study. He has written a lot of books, 23 books.
About 45.
Ah, okay. So I think it's
earlier.
Yeah. There's a lot of books and then a lot of research. His PhD thesis was the philosophy of Ghazali and its impact on Western philosopher. So I think he did comparing the philosophy between Al-Ghazali and Western philosophy. Well, I think that's the introduction from me, and you can continue the lectures. We can have 1 hour for the lecture, so the time is yours.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم. Respected professors, my colleagues, and the students, we all are students basically. As long as we think that we are students, we grow. But when we think we have learned everything, we stop growing. Today we'll be just talking about the sources of knowledge, but in a different context. Yesterday we talked about sources of knowledge in the context of philosophy. East, West, Islamic, Hindu, sophistic, mystical, everything we discussed yesterday, alhamdulillah. But today we'll be talking about reason, intuition, revelation in the context of two religions at least, Islam and Judaism, a comparative study type of thing. Then we will try to see that how Farabi's views and views of Ibn Rushd and Maimonides and sometimes Ibn Sina, those were either accepted by the religious theologians or rejected. And whatever the reasons they had for rejection or acceptance, that has been also discussed there. So in this way, this subject, why I am talking about this subject? Because problem is that we don't know much about our traditions. We know in the Western traditions we have reason. After Descartes, Cartesian reason became very important. A rational philosophy, Cartesian rationalism, and everything is seen from that angle. And from the empiricists like Locke, Hume, and others, then Bertrand Russell, we talked about empiricism and sense perception. Only few people from the West, like Bergson and William James, they have talked about mystical experience or intuition. And there are only few scholars in the West or philosophers who talk about revelation. Most of the philosophers of the West are not interested in revelation. And one of the meanings, one of the explanation of secularism in the Western context is triumph of reason over faith. How faith was, defeated by reason, that is considered to be secular. So there is no need of faith, there is no need of revelation, there is no need of intuition if we believe in philosophy or we believe in rationalism. So, but this has been contested even West by people like William James. There is some other source of knowledge apart from reason. But this subject has been discussed by our philosophers long back. And I have just shown in my thesis, PhD thesis, which as has been mentioned by my friend was Al-Ghazali and his impact on Western philosophers. And I have shown it there that our philosophers, Ghazali included, they believed in 4 sources of knowledge. One was sense perception, which is considered to be the only sphere of scientists, positivists. And second source of knowledge, according to Muslim philosophers, was reason, which is nowadays considered to be the domain of philosophers. And third source of knowledge, according to Muslims and Sufis, was intuition or inspiration, wijdan, which is nowadays considered to be the field of the psychologists only. Psychologists in the West. Especially those psychologists who are talking about abnormal psychology. Because there is nothing normal now, everything is abnormal. Even psychology has become abnormal. So they have reasons for that, starting from Freud, then Carl Jung, and then Adler and other Western psychologists. So they are talking at least about intuition. And Bergson, he has also talked about intuition. And about revelation, we find only one important person in the Western context, who is Aquinas and Saint Augustine, who talk about city of God. There is a city which is city of God. Otherwise, everyone talks about city of man. There is no scope for God in that philosophy. Because God has been, religion has been replaced to oblivion. It has no role. Revelation has no role. Prophets have no role. Now philosophers and scientists, and especially after the positivism of Saint Augustine, everything which is based on other than sense perception is having no meaning after the third stage of civilization. First stage was theological, according to Augustine. Now, there is no theological stage now, it is over. Second stage was metaphysical, philosophical. Now, that is also over. Third stage is positivistic, scientific, that is going on. So now there is no role for prophets, no role for Sufis, no role for philosophers even. And that is the starting point of logical positivism. While we have to make philosophy servant of science, because we have to eliminate metaphysics. One of the goals of logical positivists was to eliminate metaphysics. No need of metaphysics. Because their sentences which are not having any connotation and denotation, they are nonsensical, having no sense. Soul is in that, Nozbillah, God is in that, and life hereafter is in that, according to logical positivists. And they rejected everything. Then they said, only those things we can believe which can be verified. So second principle of the logical positivists was verifiability principle. If you are not able to verify a proposition, that is tautologous. It has no meaning. So in this way, you can't expect much from West that they will talk about revelation or intuition. Even in case of those Western philosophers who have talked about intuition, they have made it one of the part of human reason, like William James. So this is the elevation of human reason that becomes intuition. But when we see the same thing in Islamic or even Christian or Jewish philosophy, intuition is a separate source of knowledge. For Sufis, intuition is a separate source of knowledge. As I mentioned yesterday, Ghazali is saying, "Kana ma kana mimma last azkur, fazanil khair wala tasal anil khabar." A Sufi has such an experience in his rapturous state, Vijdan, when he has intuition. He sees such things which he can't express. And then Ghazali says, this experience gave me such information which I know only. It was there, but don't ask about details. I can't define it. It is subjective. It can't be discussed. It can't be even proven in the laboratory. So this is something subject to personal. And this point has been also mentioned by Kierkegaard in his book Either Or, Subjectivity. Existence is more important than other things. So you are understanding several things existentially, and you may not be able to explain. You cannot objectify your experiences. So experiences are more than reason, more than sense perception. So Western perception of intuition is also an elevation of reason. They can't go beyond reason because they have already banished intuition and revelation when they declared that there is no possibility of religion. Then Muhammad Iqbal had said from Pakistan and from Indian subcontinent, he said that Western people have compromised with this area. They just talk about only reason. They are too discursive reason, and there is no scope for intuition or revelation in that case. But when we talk about Islam, and as I mentioned about other religions, even Hinduism, even Buddhism, even Christianity, even Judaism, even Zoroastrianism, even Samanian religions, and even the sophistic thought, and even Mullah Rumi, Ibn Arabi, Mansur Halaj. So Mansur Halaj would say, Raitu Rabbi bi'ayn al-qalab, faqala man anta qultu anta. I saw my Lord through the eye of my heart. He asked me who you are. I said, you. So heart becomes the source of knowledge, not reason, not sense perception. So heart, and that's intuition. For Sufis, their whole attention is on heart. They cultivate their heart to the extent it becomes the reflection of the external realities. And that has been also the Eastern and Oriental way. And that is tapasya. You know tapasya? Meditations. Meditations, trying to understand your own self, know thyself, as Socrates will say. So then they know themselves, and then through their mirror, they see the world. So that is only possible when you develop your heart and intuition. But that is not possible in the Western context. Even their intuition is based on reason. But our intuition is not based on reason. That is a separate source of knowledge. And that creates a new world in case of sometimes Buddhism. So Buddha had intuition. You know that? Buddha had intuition, and then he came out with the 4 noble truths. There is dukkha, there is Krishna, and there is way to control that Krishna and that dukkha. And there are 8-fold paths. So that was based on not reason. That was not based on sense perception. That was based on intuition. And he had closed his eyes. He had closed his eyes. He had closed his mind. And then he was enlightened. He was Siddhartha. He became Buddha. Siddhartha means name. Buddha means enlightened. He got enlightened. But from within, not from outside. But in case of Islam, there is concept of prophethood. I'm explaining, then I will just tell you some about, because unless we are able to put the background of the subject, we are not able to understand the views of the religious people, what they want to say. So I just want to tell you something about these all sources of knowledge, how we can define these sources of knowledge. So in case of Buddha, for example, he does not talk about prophet, revelation, but intuition is there. A man is trying to make meditations under a tree. The tree, big tree. I have visited that place in Magad in India. I have been there. And you have here Borobudur, and you have so many temples here. So he got some enlightenment. That was from inside, not outside. Because according to many scholars, Hinduism and Buddhism are mystical religions. And according to Ibn Hazm, Shahristani, and Mullah Mohsin Fani of Dabistani Mazahib, they say that Hindus and Buddhists don't have any concept of prophethood. They have concept of avatarhood. Avatar, who just takes incarnation of God according to their belief. But according to Semitic religions like Islam, Judaism and Christianity, there is the concept of revelation. Some other source of knowledge which comes from above. As we have in case of Moses, he is receiving Torah, and that Torah comes to him from above, from God. And he goes to the Mount Tur, and he is being given 10 commandments. Khuzil kitaba biquwwah. And he is being told, you hold this book with force and full command. So this seems that and we know about Abraham, he has a dream. And he is being told, you kill your son, slaughter your son Ismail. And it is a revelation. And this revelation comes to Moses in different ways. Oh Moses, you take off your shoes, you are in the sacred valley of Tuwa. Now I have made you my prophet, and I will give you my revelation. That comes from above. From the burning bush, he finds that revelation. And he sometimes finds that revelation on the Mount Tur. And sometimes he is given tablets, Torah. Sometimes he is given 10 commandments. And then in case of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was in the cave Hira. Suddenly an angel comes to him. He says, Iqra. He says, Ma ana biqari. He says, Iqra. He says, Ma ana biqari. He says, Iqra. Ma ana biqari. The angel says, you read. He says, I am not lettered. He again says, Prophet replies, I am not lettered. 3 times. Finally, the angel says, Ikra bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq. You read in the name of the Lord who has created. Khalaqal insana min alaq. Who has created man from clot of blood. Ikra wa rabbukal akram. You read, and your Lord is merciful. Allazi alama bil kalam. Who has taught man through pen. Allamal insana ma'alam yalam. He taught man that what he was not knowing. So the knowledge which I am giving you through revelation is not the knowledge you get through senses, intuition or reason. And even those people who were not lettered, they are given this knowledge. Prophet ﷺ is giving this knowledge. This is different source of knowledge. And it is very difficult for the Western mind in modern times after Renaissance to understand this revelation. They Nozbillah sometimes call this hallucinations. They call that sometimes trance. Nozbillah sometimes they call it pits. So because they have problem, because they can't understand, they talk about abnormal things. They don't talk about normal things. So even their psychology has become abnormal. And there are many books on abnormal psychology. And even Freud, Freud, when he was treating his patients, and almost all his patients used to be introverts or perverts. No good man went to Freud for treatment, because only those people went who were already suffering. And then he concluded that man is led by libido and id. That is the sexual instinct. That is the only strong instinct in man. Even religion was created because of that. Oedipus complex. You know that? I don't need to explain that here. And then if you go to Carl Jung, so he talks about unconscious. But there also in unconscious he has his own, different notions which are not very much amenable to intuition. So this was some background in which I am going to talk, that there are 4 sources of knowledge. One is sense perception, second is reason, third is intuition, and fourth is revelation. And we have for example, if we take from religious point of view, science has taken sense perception. So scientists only believe in that which can be proven through senses. Now we have apparatus, we have sky labs, we have microscopes, we have telescopes. So whatever is seen by our senses, that is to be accepted and believed. And what is beyond that, we don't believe. Because that is tautologous, that has no meaning, as logical positivists say. Second source of knowledge is reason. So that is rationalism. So reason can tell us what is good and what is bad. But in philosophy, when we talk about empiricism, we have Locke, John Locke. He talks about impressions, and then he talks about ideas. When you have no impression, you can't have any idea. So when man is born, his mind is like a tabula rasa. There is nothing written on the mind of man when he is born. So then how he writes things? Through experience. Then Hume would say, man is a bundle of impressions. There are only impressions. We don't have any impression of soul, there is no soul. We have no impression of self, there is no self. And he does not believe in miracles, he does not believe in God. And then Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell in the Western context of philosophy says, there are sense data, there is sensibilia, there is neutral monism. But even we don't know whether stone exists or not. Because what is stone? There are molecules and they are revolving around nucleus. So there is nothing. And he says in his book, Endless of Matter, the matter is the colony of events. The matter which seems solid, that is not solid. That is colony of events. That is not even given to our senses. And he says that we don't know whether sun exists or not, because we saw the sun of 8 minutes before. Maybe this is not existing this time. Our senses deceive us. And then Hume went to the extent of saying that even we are the bundle of impressions. We are not having any existence. We don't have any soul. So this was the problem. But when we talk about the second source of knowledge, that is reason, that is rationalism in West. So we have René Descartes. At least he has talked about innate ideas. That we have the idea of being, complete being, ultimate being, that may be God. And then he talks about mind and body, 2 substances. One is mind and second is body. Although Gilbert Ryle says later on, where from this body has come where from this mind has come in this body, it is just like a machine in a ghost in a machine. Gilbert Ryle says. He challenges that there is no scope for even mind. Who says this? Gilbert Ryle in the philosophy of Descartes. And then Kant says, Descartes thinks that there is God because I have the idea of God in my mind. And Kant says I have idea of $100 in my pocket, but I see it is not there. So how you can say that through reason you can prove God? Cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I exist. So thinking and but it is very difficult to prove God even by reason. Even in case of Descartes, as I mentioned about this. Then third source, as I mentioned, was intuition. So I told about that. Then last is revelation. So now with this background, I will just now explain some of the points which I have written here, because this was very important. I was told by some of my friends that we need to explain things first, because people may not be taking it in that way. Sometimes we are not very much aware about everything. We need background. And it has been said by Voltaire, if you want to discuss with me, define your terms. We have to define our terms, what we mean by reason. West means something else by reason. We need something else. Scientists mean something else by intuition, and we mean something else. They mean something else by revelation, and we mean by something else. For example, I give example, then I come to that main topic. In Christianity, they believe that Jesus is the revelation of God. What Christians say? Jesus is the revelation of God. They don't believe that there is anything else than Jesus. They think that in the beginning there was Word, God was with Word, and God is Word. Word is God, or God is Word. And then they say this Word became flesh. So in this way, their concept of revelation is different from concept of the Jews or Muslims. So now what is the point? Farabi uses his theory of intellect to explain prophecy. Now I am coming to philosophy, Muslim philosophy, and I am trying to explain some of the views of our religious scholars about prophethood and revelation and reason and intuition. A prophet, he thinks, is someone whose mind has been fully actualized by the active intellect, and who is in a position to share the resulting knowledge with the rest of humankind. Prophet is someone with a very powerful imaginative power, says Farabi, who uses it to devise symbols for the truths, grasped more explicitly and adequately at the level of intellect. It is Farabi. Now, after Farabi, we have people like Ismaili philosophers. Ismaili philosophers were the people who believed in Imam. There is a hidden source of knowledge that comes from Imams. They faced a challenge as was not faced by other people. As our Shia brothers, they faced this problem. They needed to explain the need for guidance from an Imam. Why we need an Imam? And you should be knowing this. Ghazali wrote 14 books in order to reject the doctrines of the Imamates. He said, we don't need an Imam when there is Quran. Who says this? Ghazali. There is a living Imam, that is Quran. So we don't need a hidden Imam. But our Ismaili brothers, Shia, they believe that we need an Imam to explain Quran, to explain revelation. They integrated religious revelation into their Neoplatonic cosmos. Basically, they were influenced by Neoplatonism. What is Neoplatonism? You have some idea about that? Neoplatonism is basically the philosophy of Plato as presented by Plotinus. And little bit I will just tell you about Plotinus. We had Plato who talked about ideas. Then he said everything is consisting of universal and particular. And first we have the supernatural. Every idea is existing in the supernatural world. And whatever is existing in the world, that is a copy of that idea or concept. And the best concept is of good. And good contemplating good, that is God, equivalent to God. Then came Aristotle. He said, where from the idea has come, had there been no matter, he made whole thing topsy-turvy. He said, if there is concept of man in the supernatural world, if there would have been no man, where from this idea would have come? So it is matter and form, not form and matter. But if you go by this logic, then what is the form of form? Everything is consisting of matter and form. What is the form of God? What is the matter of God? At least Plato could define that God is the highest idea. Okay. But what about Aristotle? Because he believed that everything is consisting of matter and form. So when everything is consisting of matter and form, then what about God? So if you say God is consisting of matter, that will be problematic. So in a sense, his God does not exist. Whose? Aristotle's God. Then this vacuum was filled by Plotinus. He said there is no form and matter, there is emanation. What is emanation? That this God was like a sun or a spring, where from the light has overflowed. Faizan, Nazre, Sadur, innate. So this world has come out from God. So this was the background of the Neoplatonic philosophy, which was mixed by our philosophers with philosophy of Plato and other philosophers of the Greek thought. And this became the basis of also the Ismaili thought. So we need to know this. So what did they do? They wanted to explain this cosmos with the prophets recognizing by Islam presented as legislators. They think that prophets are just like legislators. They give law. And whose teachings are founded in the truths of the universal intellect. This sounds very like Al-Farabi, as we have talked. And indeed, at least one Ismaili thinker seems to have been powerfully influenced by Al-Farabi, whose name was Kirmani. Ismailis further insisted that the law handed over by the prophet is not enough. The revelation is not enough, but needs to be interpreted. So Imams explain the inner meanings of the prophetic revelation. We need someone who can tell us what is the inner meaning of the revelation. We can't understand revelation on our own. So we need Imams. So this was something, their view. And now Ibn Khaldun comes. So Ibn Khaldun is considered to be father of modern sociology and father of history and everything. Ibn Khaldun speaks of occult phenomenon as divination. He says that this revelation is a type of divination. We have, in a sense, dreams. Sometimes prophets say dreams, and then they have prophecy also. They have revelations, and that those who enjoy such insight have a resource that oversteps human reasoning, more than human reasoning, some different source. He is highly critical, in fact, of thinkers like Ibn Sina and Al-Farabi, who are trying to explain revelation in the naturalistic explanations. How we can explain revelation in the naturalist way, that it is something human beings have, some imaginative power, they can intuit reality from above. The people who have more imaginative power, they can become like prophets. What is this? So it has no external source. I have already explained to you that revelation is external source, it's not internal source. But these people are trying to explain it in naturalistic way. So Ibn Khaldun also opposed them, that this can't be explained like this. Now we have another atheistic philosopher of Muslims. So we should know there were some philosophers who did not believe in revelation. So we had Abu Bakr Razi. We have two Razis. One is Imam Fakhruddin Razi. He is the greatest man, about whom Iqbal says that unless you study Quran on your own, even Kashaf, Zamakhshari and Razi can't explain it for you. And Iqbal says in Urdu, तेरे ज़मीर पे जब तक न हो नुज़ूल किताब गिरा कुशा है न राजी न साहिब कशाफ. So you may not understand the meaning of this. Nahi. But this is something. Iqbal says that unless you think that Quran is being given to you, even Razi and Zamakhshari will not be able to explain for you. So he's the greatest writer and thinker of Ash'arites, one of the greatest polemical thinkers, who even challenged Ghazali, who challenged even Zamakhshari. He challenged many people. Great mind. Although about his tafsir, it has been said by Ibn Taymiyyah, fi kullu shay wa tafsir. In his books there is everything except tafsir. Although he has written tafsir of the Quran, tafsir Kabir. But according to Ibn Taymiyyah, everything is in his tafsir but not tafsir. So what type of tafsir is that? So that is, but he is not that Razi I am talking about. He is against Mu'tazilites. He is against those people who don't believe in revelation. But it is Abu Bakr Razi. He believed in God, soul, matter, time, and place. He is serious in holding that the last four are eternal. He talks about that. However, about prophecy, he observes that it would be unjust, Nuzbillah, and counterproductive for God to single out only certain people as prophets. So God can't choose only from people as prophets, such that only they would receive a divine revelation, which is not received by others. That would only lead to strife as groups gather around their various prophets and wage war against each other. We should therefore put our trust in reason and not in prophecy, Nozubillah. He says like that. I say Nozubillah because I know the implications. So for that reason, it was someone told him, "Oh, Mr. Razi, it is better for you to deal with medicine, not with metaphysics. It is not your cup of tea." And when he used to sometimes he used to use the flute. Flute? Here you have a lot of music. Huh? So he used to use flute, but then he found that I should not use flute because I have beard. Flute does not suit a beard. But he was a little bit critical of prophecy because we believe that prophets are chosen. One of the meaning of Prophet ﷺ is Mustafa. What is the meaning of Mustafa? Who has been chosen. Prophets too become prophets on their own unless God chooses them. Wallahu ya'lamu haysu yaj'alu risalah. Quran says Allah knows where I should keep my prophethood. So God chooses. Prophets are not becoming prophets on their own unless Allah chooses them, God chooses them. But Razi says no. Prophets can't be chosen and it should be available to all people. So we should not believe in prophecy, we should believe in reason. About revelation, we have a great scholar, Hajar Asqalani. He is the commentator of Bukhari. And it has been said, La Fatah Ba'd al-Fatah. After the Fathul Bari of Hadith Bukhari, there is no other book like that. Greatest book of Hadith and great commentary of that. So he writes dictionary meaning of revelation means implicit information. What is why? Implicit information. It is other meanings are written document, a message, intuition, signal, directive, and hearing of any sound. Rehearing, to listen it again and again. Salsatul jars. Revelation is just like the ringing of the bells, tolling of the bells. Some believe that the real meaning of revelation is comprehension, understanding. According to the revealed religion, revelation means the knowledge of Sharia. Revelation purely is an object which is revealed to a prophet from Allah. Ibn Qayyim describes the following stages of revelation. These are very important scholars of religion. Ibn Qayyim, Ilam al-Muq'in, his very famous book. Madarij al-Saliqin, very important book. So true dreams were the beginning of revelation to the prophet. So first it comes in form of dreams. Those are known as mubashirat. One invisible angel would convey some message in his heart. An angel will come and he will convey the message. The prophet said, the Holy Spirit has conveyed to me that no one animate dies till he finishes his food on the earth. Impersonated angels would come to the prophet and address him. Angel Jibreel. At times the revelation would come in the form of the tolling of a bell, as I said. But this was painful experience for the prophet. During this experience, the prophet also would perspire, or his dromedary would sit down, his camel, she-camel, kaswa. At one time, the thigh of the prophet was on the thigh of Zayd bin Sabit. He felt as his thigh was about to crumble under the influence of revelation. Zahairi sanulki alayka qawlan saqila. We are going to give you a reveal to you, O prophet, a very heavy message. So it is very heavy. It is not something from inner. It is coming from above. So this is different from intuition, which comes from within. In the Jewish rabbinic, now let us understand something about Jews, how they believe in this revelation. The Jewish rabbinic polemics against the Karaites, these are the Jewish philosophers. Human reason is not in a position to discern the full range of our obligations. So man can't understand his own obligations through reason. Human reason is not capable to tell us about what we should do and what we should not do. Because then there is an advocate, he will justify a killer. You know advocate? In the court, when a criminal, he makes an advocate justifies the criminal, and an advocate makes an innocent person to be made as a criminal, and a criminal as an innocent person because of logic. They give a lot of logic, and then they make this man to scot-free. This is why the law was revealed. Different people are given different duties. The Jews have many duties, like obeying the dietary laws. They justify how we need revelation, that other people do not. They think that we were salvaged by God from, we were taken to the promised land of Egypt. So we have some duties. How we can understand those duties? Through prophets. On our own and through our reason, we can't understand those duties. Likewise, prophets are placed under obligations to God that do not apply to the celestial. Prophets have also many duties to perform, which are not to be performed by rest of the people, say the Jewish scholars. God is in heaven and thou upon earth, therefore let the words be few, says Psalms. Like the ancient Jewish thinker Philo of Alexandria, Maimonides considers his same Moses to be the greatest of the prophets. Indeed, Maimonides devoted much of his life to the correct exposition of the Mosaic prophetic revelation. He is a philosopher. He has written a book, Guide to the Purple Exit. But do you know, he wrote this book in Arabic. Who? Moses bin Maimonides. Maimonides bin Moses. Musa bin Maimun. Moses bin Maimonides. He wrote his book in Arabic, Dalilul Hayrin. He was influenced by Ghazali, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, and he quotes them again and again. But we don't know that. We think that Western philosophy has come on so on from belief. So it was the influence of Islam. And Muslim philosophers like Ghazali, like Ibn Rushd, like Ibn Sina, like Al-Farabi, like Ibn Tufayl, like Ibn Arabi, that Western philosophy reached to this stage. And this has been accepted by many Western scholars themselves, like Bertrand Russell, like Saughton, like William Breford, like Ramlando, like Lewis, like Arnold, and like Peter Adams. They accepted that this, in fact, of Muslim philosophy was great on Western philosophers. Even Descartes was influenced by Ghazali, Hume was influenced by Ghazali, and Ibn Sina, and others, but they don't accept it. And we also say that we don't have any philosophy. There is no philosophy in Islam. Why? There is. And there was a great philosopher. But here I am not talking about that. He used allegorical interpretation to diffuse any session in the Bible that God literally spoke to prophets. Prophets receive truth intellectually, he says, not through the senses. So this is also an indicator that Jewish philosophers also believe in revelation that is separate from intuition and sense perception and reason. More generally, he accepts the possibility of miracles. Who? Maimonides. But Ibn Rushd does not believe. Ibn Sina does not believe. Farabi does not believe. For that reason, Ghazali in Tahabut philosopher rejected these people, and he said these people have become heretical because they don't believe in miracles. And our modern, modernists who believe in sense perception and reason as only source of knowledge, they also denied miracles, like Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, like Javed Ghamidi, and like others who believe that only source of knowledge is sense perception and reason. They don't believe in prophethood. And for prophethood, miracles are very important. But Maimonides believed in miracles. Yet, and even for the reason of establishing miracles, Ghazali said that there is no causal connection between cause and effect, no necessary connection. And this thesis was taken later on by Hume, that cause is with effect, not because of effect. And then Hume says, a man goes to the desert, he finds a watch, then he concludes that a man might have come here, he has lost the watch and have got it. But where is that man? Where is that connection? There is no necessary connection between cause and effect, says Hume. And this is the quantum theory of modern times. Uncertainty principle in the universe, Poincare's uncertainty principle, Heisenberg's law. So in West also, in modern science also, we have so many uncertain things. We can't explain the phenomenon by our reason or observation. This mysterious universe, James Jeans, this universe is mysterious. And as Hawking would say, Stephen Hawking, he would say that once upon a time, philosophers were discussing about origin of the universe, origin of the man. Now they discuss what is language, what has come down. Philosophy has been squeezed to a small area of language philosophy. It is not talking about metaphysics. It's not talking about God now, says Stephen Hawking. So problem is that they can't understand many things through reason only. So he believes that in fact nature contains within it the seeds of miracles. Maimonides says it is somehow a part of the Red Sea's nature to part at just the right time to allow. Because now he had to justify that how Moses crossed the Red Sea. So then he says there is possibility of miracle that Moses could make that. Israel's passage to the other side. Elsewhere he also admits that the natures of the things do change in a miracle, but only temporarily. The Maimonides follows the idea pioneered in an Islamic context by Al-Farabi. He was talking about Al-Farabi and later embraced Averroes, that Aristotle philosophy establishes with proof what religion can express only in persuasive symbols. On this view, it is not philosophy, but religion and the religious law that are local, since a prophetic revelation is tailored for a certain group of believers, he says. And then in this way we find that Al-Balag also, he was also a Jewish philosopher, he has also talked about that. So he, like Ibn Rushd, thinks that the philosopher who is in the best position to determine the true meaning by showing that the truth and philosophical demands teach the same lessons. However, unlike Ibn Rushd, he allows the possibility that revelation may contain truths inaccessible to philosophy. Ibn Rushd said that whatever can be attained by philosophy, that can't be attained by something else. But Al-Balag says that there may be some truths which can be only attained by revelation, not by philosophy. And then at two occasions, the archangel came, now coming to Islam now, again. Archangel came to the Prophet in real shape. So now how this revelation comes to Prophet? The angel comes in human form sometimes in his own form. We have a story about which has been revealed, that the narration made by Hazrat Umar, that once upon a time we were sitting with the Prophet, a man with a transparent cloth came, very white cloth, and he sat before Prophet in a secreted form, as we sit before a teacher. Then he asked us some questions. Mal Iman, Mal Islam, Mal Ihsan. What is Iman? What is Islam? What is Ihsan? Then Prophet replied. Then when he left, Prophet said, he was angel Jabreel who had come to teach you religion. Now Umar says that we wanted to search for him, but he had gone. His shape was same, his figure was like the Dahiya Kalbi, who was one of the companions of the Prophet. So in human form sometimes angels come, but sometimes angels come in their actual form. Prophet Moses had direct dialogue with God. In some cases there is direct dialogue, but Kalam Musa wa Kalam Allahu Musa Taklima. God had a direct and constant conversation with Moses. He is known as Kalimullah, who talks to God behind the door, behind the bush, and God talks to him. You know this story? No. The Muslim scholars, ancient as modern, do not agree to many of these points. There are three characteristics attributed to the revelation. Revelation reveals the real knowledge of things. The source of revelation are neither induction nor deduction. This is philosophical. But it is revealed to Prophet all of a sudden. The knowledge is linked with the routine life of man, which aims at reformation and the giving goodness to the goodness, or glad tidings to the goodness. Revelation means authentic signals. It is annexed with the quickness of the speed. At times it is in symbols, in individual voices. Signs are in black, adulate, God has endowed man with the gift of feeling, intellect, and intuition. Besides, he is guided by the glory of revelation, which is free from all flames and foibles. He chooses his messenger out of people who is innocent and pious. The prophet has to be innocent and pious. He should be the best among all. In spite of being a human being, he is able to have communion with God. Thus he becomes a messenger between God and his people by virtue of revelation. This process is named as prophethood. As a matter of fact, there is deep connection between prophethood and revelation. So we need to also understand this connection. To start with Arabic words, I have just mentioned what is the word, that is wahi and iha. So these are the two words for revelation. It's a different source of knowledge. For the delivery of the higher message, which relates to the welfare of mankind, a higher form of revelation is chosen. So God is sending prophets so that they may reform the society. They may make people better human beings. Because human reason, philosophers can't help them always. Sufis can't help them always, mystics. And scientists can't help them always because their sources of knowledge are very limited. Philosopher can't go beyond reason. Scientists can't go beyond sense perception and reason. Mystic can't go beyond intuition. But there are so many worlds which are beyond our sense perception and reason and intuition. And that is only told us by the prophets. And that is known as Nubuwah. Nubuwah means they are speaking from higher pedestal. Or one of the meanings of Nubuwah is who give us details. They give us information about the big news like doomsday. Our reason can't tell us whether there will be doomsday or not. Our reason for that mysticism and logic, Bertrand Russell. Although he is an atheist, he talks in his book, Our Knowledge of the External World. We have limited knowledge about things. We don't know what is matter. So when we don't know matter, how we can know that which is beyond matter? So this is being given to us by prophets. And we can also say that we are told in reports that before the higher message came to the prophet, he received the first Quranic revelation. He used to have the visions, that is Mubashirah. So as we mentioned already, sometimes those were the hidden nafasa fi ruh. Something is being revealed in the heart of the Prophet. As it has been said, the eyes of prophets sleep, but not the hearts of the prophet. He is, during day and during night, they used to receive revelation from Allah. The only statements that are met with hadith are similar to the quoted from Bukhari. For instance, we have in Muslim, when revelation came to the Holy Prophet, he appeared to be as it were the distress and turned pale in the face. So now there was some impact of this revelation coming to the prophets. It was not something, sudden. It was sudden, but there was impact of that. And it was not something physical. It was something coming from supernatural source. And even in the first revelation prophet, when it came to him, prophet feared for his life. And he came to his wife Khatija, Zambiluni, Dasiruni, wrap me in a blanket, O Khatija, because he was fearing for his life. Some new experience he had got. It was not something rational gymnastics, Nozbillah. It was not something intuitive experiences of a Sufi. It was not any sensory experience of a scientist. It was something else than that. That is known as revelation. And then there are nature. What is the nature of prophethood? What are the different characteristics of this revelation? So that I have discussed in the detail. And there are three characteristics attributed to the revelation. What are those? Revelation reveals the real knowledge of things. The source of revelation are neither, as I mentioned, induction. Either we have knowledge through sense perception or deduction, that is reason. But revelation is beyond these two sources. It talks about camel. It talks about earth. It talks about skies. But its source is not the external world. Its source is something else, not induction, not deduction. But philosophy is based either on deduction or on induction. Science is based on induction. Philosophy is based on deduction. From particular to general, or from general to particular. But prophets are not like that. Their revelation comes without these limitations. And then this revelation talks about those aspects which no philosopher could even imagine. Socrates has not said about those anything, not Plato, not Aristotle. That was the point which was mentioned by Ghazali when he talks about revelation against philosophers. He says Greeks had no prophets, so they can't talk about the matters which are relating to the supernatural world. They are limited. They had no prophets, says Ghazali. So their views about God are based on their speculations, and speculation never matters in matters of religion. And then Ibn Taymiyyah says that the philosophers, Muslim philosophers, basing on Greek philosophy, they have made God weaker than the 10th intelligence. And he says, Ibn Taymiyyah, the shirk of the philosophers is worse than the shirk of the people of Arab. Shirkul philosopher ashnaw min shirk abnai Arab. The polytheism of the philosophers like Ibn Sina and Al-Farabi is worse than the shirk of the people of the ignorance of Arab. Because at least Ghazali Ibn Taymiyyah says, the people of Arabs of ignorance believed in one God at least. But these philosophers don't believe in one God. They believe in 10 intelligences, not one. And they say that God does not know how the world has come out of him as emanation. So what type of God? Al-Wahidullah yazdaru min al-Wahid. Only one intelligence can come from another intelligence, and God does not know about that. What type of God they are talking about? So in this way, their view about revelation was totally erroneous, because they were followers of those philosophers who had no concept of prophethood. So only a person who believes in God and prophets can understand nature of revelation. And this is one of the tenets of belief, to believe in Risala. One of the tenets of belief is to believe in Risala. So it is not the subject matter of discussion or speculation, it is a matter of belief. So unless you believe in prophethood, how you can accept his realities, what he mentions? So it comes with Iman, not with rationalization or with philosophical discussions. In this way, this has been a very great subject on which Muslim philosophers and other scholars have talked a great deal. That there are, now I'm concluding, there are 4 sources of knowledge. One is, but Muslim philosophers and Muslim theologians like Ghazali, like Ibn Taymiyyah, and all the Muslim great scholars of Islam, they have never denied that we do get knowledge through sense perception. We get. But sense perception has limitations. As Ghazali would say, first judge is sense perception judge. And it decides about many things. What is warm, what is hot, what is cold, what is red, what is black. But still it makes some mistakes sometimes with our sense perception. It sometimes says that the rod which is in the water is tilted, but that is not. That is, he says that sometimes a man thinks that snake is rope and rope is snake. But then he realizes it is not rope, it is snake. Or it is snake, it is not rope. So because our senses deceive us. And sometimes we see that sun is very small. But then we see that sun is bigger than earth. So senses, then who tells us that it is wrong? Our reason. But reason has also limitations. Sometimes reason is not able to understand many things. So then comes intuition. Then first judge is Hakme His. Second is Hakme Akal. Third is Hakme Vijdan, intuition. And last is Hakme Wahi. The last judge is, supreme judge is judge of revelation, which corrects everything. Where reason has made mistakes, where sense person has made mistakes, where Sufis have made mistakes, where philosophers, scientists and Sufis have made mistakes. And then Ghazali says, Sufis are at the feet of prophets. Where the sainthood ends, prophethood starts. So the ultimate source of knowledge according to religion is revelation. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you very much. Let's give our applause.